Hi everybody, my name's Dana, and this is actually my first time on YouTube, really, just making a video directly for YouTube. So I'm pretty excited about it. Obviously I have some fears as well, putting myself out there, but this year for my New Year's resolution, I decided that I really wanted to help people and put my knowledge out there. So here I am. At the moment, we are at January 2nd, and I know a lot of people are thinking about the next year, specifically when it comes to different programs, like applying for a master's program, or applying for your degree, or applying for certain positions that are going to start, in the fall time or in the autumn season. So this particular video is going to be about a specific program in Spain. Most of you may know it by the name Auxiliares de conversación, or the language assistant program. So basically I'm going to go through a full run through. I'm going to share with you the most popular asked questions and really work to resolve a lot of your doubts. I'll also be using a lot of my own stories and personal experience with it. That way you can relate and have a great understanding if this is the right program for you. So as they like to say on YouTube, without further ado, let's start. Oh, just a disclaimer, I will be reading a little bit from my laptop since I'm quite a newbie at this, so in case I forget anything important. But it's not gonna be rote memorization. So anyhow, let's get started. If you're wanting to apply for the Auxiliares de conversación program in Spain, then this is a fantastic step. Let me applaud you in it because first off, there's not many opportunities for US citizens to go and work in Spain or anywhere in Europe without specializing in any sort of specific degree or skill. When I say that, I mean, if you're a doctor, you can probably get a job pretty easily in different areas of the world. If you are an engineer or a computer scientist, then again, your chances of getting a skilled workers visa or a talent visa are incredibly high in comparison to those who had a degree in, let's say, business or in exercise or in psychology or anything really. Because although those skills are really important to have, and if you have a degree in that, amen, that's amazing. But a lot of people, because we're moving into that tech-based world, a lot of companies will be hiring more technically skilled people. So this is an opportunity, if you've always wanted to live in Europe, this is an opportunity to jump on that train and get a visa, live in Europe, and start creating a life there. More specifically, Spain. So just a little back preview. It was always my dream to live in Europe, and I put it off for many years because I did not think it was possible. But now I'm realizing that it's 100% possible really to do anything. But once I came across this program, it really set it into stone for me that, okay, let's do this. So basically, the requirements for this program are pretty straightforward and actually quite easy. You just have to be from a native speaking English country. So that's gonna be the United States or Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, anywhere in the United Kingdom. And if you speak English fluently, then your chances are really high of getting accepted for this program. Another requirement is that you need to have your bachelor's degree. So that is something, if you don't have it, unfortunately, that is a definite requirement of the program. But what you do not need is a TESOL or a TEFL certificate. This isn't necessary at all. Even if you're looking for supplementary work outside of this job when you're living there, most of the time you're not going to need that certificate either. So just keep that in mind. Don't waste your money or time trying to get one if you're not super passionate about it. I mean, you'll learn the skills that you need to learn through YouTube courses about how to teach English to the students. But that being said, the requirements are that you need to be between the ages of 18 and 60. Although I have heard that they have a preference for like 18 to 35. And I think that's probably just because of the fact that the visa that you're going to be acquiring to go work in Spain is actually a student visa. So basically, this program is funded by the government of Spain, Ministerio de, well, okay, let's move on from that. I'll put it in the comments below. But basically, it's going to be funded by the government of Spain, and they're going to give you a Spanish, like a student visa in order to go and work there. And it's a grant-funded program. So technically, you're receiving grant money, not a salary, which is also great because you're not taxed on it in Spain, that is. If you're from the United States, you're taxed on every last dollar you've ever earned. Trust me, it's horrible. But without, you know, diverting too much from the topic, I actually wanted to like let you know a little bit about how the program works and what you should expect to do in your role. So basically this program, your role in this program, or what you're meant to do in this program, is act as a language assistant. So you'll never, you know, need to act as the primary teacher because you're not the primary teacher. There will always be a teacher in the classroom who is pretty proficient at English, and they'll always be providing you with most of the lesson content, and you're just meant to act as an assistant, you know, like provide help where it's needed. Most of the time, this is how it's gonna work. The teacher's gonna create the main lesson. You're gonna go into the classroom. 2 minutes before class, they're gonna hand you the assignment and say, we're going over this, this, and this. And they're gonna ask you to present it. They may ask you to present half of it, or they may ask you to do the whole thing. But the best part about that is that you didn't have to spend all your time planning it. So another thing that might happen is that, especially in the beginning, is that you'll probably will be asked to like create PowerPoints or presentations. A lot of times, you know, there were certain classes, like I worked in a science class and that was taught in English to the students, and I was asked to, you know, prepare 6 weeks of science lessons, and that was super fun. I mean, I was definitely excited about it, but also I didn't have to do any of that on my free time. When she asked me to prepare that, she gave me literally the time to do that in the classroom. So that was fantastic. And so I got to prepare the lessons, and then I just sort of got to have a little bit more control, and it made it more fun and a lot more like interactive for me. Other times, you know, you might not even be on the floor teaching. You might be asked to work just like, you know, walking around the classroom, helping students who are struggling with certain areas of the subject or certain areas, or especially students that are already struggling a lot with English. You might be asked to, you know, help them out as well. So those are just, you know, some of the things that you might expect in the classroom. But I want you to be fully aware of the things that you should not expect in the classroom. So first off, I might have skipped over this, but you are never supposed to be left in the classroom alone with the children. And one of the reasons that you don't have to have like a bachelor's in teaching or a master's in teaching is because you never are alone in the classroom with the children. So if you were in that position, if you were the full-time teacher, then you would need to have like, you know, your teaching degree. But that's one of the reasons why, you know, you can have a degree in business and come into this program. You really have to have nothing to do with English beforehand. You just have to be an English speaker. But again, okay, so the things that you should definitely never expect to have happen in the classrooms are, you should never have to prepare the main lesson. You know, like the whole curriculum. You'll be asked to prepare certain lessons, but never the whole entire curriculum for the year. You will never be alone in the classroom with the students. That's not allowed. You should never discipline the students. Never. Leave that to the teacher. And honestly, Spanish teachers are fantastic at disciplining their children, so just leave it to them, let them do it, because it's kind of, if you're coming from the United States, it can be shocking at times, but it's the way that it is there. Another thing you should be aware of is that if your class is going on like a field trip or doing a huge event that's going to last hours, then you're not actually expected to do that. Like even if it's on one of your work days, if they're going on a field trip that's going to last from like 8 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, that's like half of your work week right there. So you don't have to go. You probably will be given the day off, or those time slots you'll be given off. Another thing that you never should have to do is like take your own time to tutor the children, or you'll never have to really plan too many lessons on your own free time. Also, you should, I mean, I've heard of this happening before, but you really shouldn't ever go to a classroom and just sit down the whole time and be another body in the classroom. I know that happens in some classrooms, but some people can be okay with that, you know? But it's so boring if that's the case, and it shouldn't be the case. You should be an active role, an active participant in teaching. So just be aware of that. Okay, so what is the payment and how many hours per week are you expected to work? So this actually depends on the region that you're in, the payment. It's pretty much the same all across the board. There's just like a slight change in payment depending on where you're placed, because there's going to be a slight change in the hours you work. So the standard payment for most regions right now, and the standard hours are 12 hours per week in the classroom and 700 euros per month. So that works out to be about roughly €14.50 per hour, which is fantastic if you think about it, because the living expenses in Spain are nothing when you compare them to the living expenses in the US or in Australia or New Zealand, 2 places that I've lived outside of the US. So really, you're taking that 700 euros and, you know, you're putting however much you need to put toward your rent. And I'll go over that in the end of the video. So if you want to just get to my story, then just skip to like, I suppose the last 5 minutes. But basically, you're going to be able to continue on, you'll be fine on that. That doesn't mean you can't get supplementary work, and I'll explain that. But as I mentioned earlier, if you're in like a specific region, like Madrid or Valencia, then your schedule is going to be a bit different. You'll actually be working about 16 hours per week and receiving about 1,000 euros per month. So you'll also be starting and ending a bit sooner as well. I think you go about 1 month longer in the program, and that's great, you know, that's just extra time you get to spend in Spain and extra time that you get paid for. So that's, you know, another case, another scenario. And 1,000 euros, I mean, in Valencia, that's great. In Madrid, it's a bit more difficult. So from what I've heard, like people are paying a bit more in Madrid for living expenses, and the metro is actually a lot more expensive as well in Madrid. I mean, just compared to where I was living and compared to there, I had it much cheaper. So just be aware of that. But again, Madrid is fantastic. So if you want to go there, then by all means apply for that region. They need plenty of teachers. Okay, so another spot, and I've just heard that people talk about this, but in the Canary Islands, apparently you can actually work the standard 12 hours, but you have the option to add on 4 extra hours per week to get it up to the 16 hours, and you'll be paid something like 930 euros for that time. So again, that's a sweet deal. If I would have been offered that in my school, I probably honestly wouldn't have looked so hard to get a second job, because 930 euros would have actually been enough to pay my rent, pay my metro, my phone bills, pay my utilities, which was included in my rent, and pay my food, and pay for my holidays. So, you know, it's probably better that I didn't, because I got cool, like, you know, more experience working another job during the time. But it's enough. It's enough, trust me. So how and when can you apply for the program? Well, I think it changes every year, just slightly. You know, traditionally, they gave you the option to apply. They opened up the actual application on January 1st or around January 1st to January 6th. And this year it's actually January 27th. So if you're applying for the I suppose it would be the 2021 school year, then the application is going to open up on January 27th. So do not delay. It's going to be opened up that day. But yes, when I applied, I believe it opened up on January 6th. So what I did was I prepared everything in advance. And that's because you're actually going to need a lot of different things to give to put in your application. So first off, you're going to need a PDF image of your valid passport photo, and you should have at least 2 years left on your passport. You should always have at least 2 years left on your passport, I think, especially if your long-term goal is living like outside of the US. You should also have a PDF of your university diploma or your bachelor's degree, and then you should also have a 250-word cover letter or letter, carta de motivación, a motivational letter, which can be done in like either English or Spanish. So both of these are like, you can either do it in English or Spanish. You're not going to get deducted points. It does help, I believe perhaps maybe people would see a letter written in Spanish and think, oh, that's cool. Maybe they have some understanding of Spanish. But it's not a requirement at all. And then lastly, you're going to need a letter of recommendation from either a past professor or a past employer. So I got all those things prepared like middle of December because I wanted to make sure that I had it all just ready, perfect. And I basically, the day that the application opened, which I was on there I remember I timed it so that way I was timing it to Spain's hours. And the moment like it turned midnight in Spain on that day, I went on and I put in my application, I got everything sent in, and I got a really, a pretty good number. So I think everybody's thinking that way though. So don't stress it too much if you're, 1 day late on it. I mean, heck, I even applied in March once, and I still was given an opportunity to get to work in Spain. So don't let that be, if you are 1 or 2 days late, c'est la vie. That's the way it is. So basically, these are the things that you're just going to want to, think about beforehand. I mean, anytime that you're going to take like a new step to go work in a country abroad, then you're going to obviously want to know what are the benefits, what are you going to get out of this, what's going to be the opportunities, what's it realistically going to be like. And, once you have come to peace with the fact or come to terms with the fact that it sounds rather negative. Once you've, decided you're going to go with this, then that's when you're going to get everything prepared and just go with it. But I think it does help to hear the experience of another person who's done it. And so that's where I come in, because I think that I had a pretty unique experience, and I didn't have the traditional experience when it came to it. So that's why I want to share it with you. And also, I'll sort of relate to other people who I knew who had, the traditional experience. But basically, when I applied, I had applied to work in the Basque region, El País Vasco, and this was my top region, #1. I wanted to get put in San Sebastian, Donostia. This was like a do or die. I was gonna get it. At least I thought. But I didn't end up getting it. So when I got my letter that I was accepted to the program, it was about April, and I had been put in the Basque region, but I was put in a town that was incredibly secluded and very remote and had very little transportation throughout Spain. Excuse me. So it was also in the part of the Basque region called Victoria, which was actually a very cold region, very snowy. And I had just spent a year in New Zealand being really remote, and I wanted more of a social experience. So And when I got that, I realized, you know, this is my assignment, you know, do I really want to do this? And at the time I was actually living in Australia and I was really enjoying my life there and I had a great job, fabulous place, Australia. And I put it to thought for a few days because I had to respond within a week, I believe it was. And I turned it down. I literally turned it down. I said, you know what? I'll find another way. That's okay. So fast forward, let's say April, May, June, July, August. Yeah, let's fast forward 5 months about. And I had just gotten through doing this amazing hiking experience and excursion through France. And basically, when I got to the end of my adventure in France, which took about 27 days, I landed in the Basque Country. And when I was there, I just had this massive feeling that I needed to do the Auxiliares de conversación program. And so I literally wrote them the day that I arrived to my arrival spot. And I said, is there any way that I can get back in with the program? Plans have changed. You know, I sort of told them that, you know, I would even go back to the same spot that they originally gave me. I just want to be in the Basque Country. And they actually came back to me and they said, well, you know, you can't have your same spot, but there's a town that is looking for auxiliares to come in January. So this town was going to be called Portugalete, and you know, because I wouldn't have had enough time at that point to get ready for the intake in October, January was perfect. Turns out, so I ended up Googling this spot right away, obviously, and I looked, and Portugalete was in this fabulous port area, and this port and this like cruise ship like town area, and it was about a 10-minute metro ride outside of Bilbao. This place is charming, it's beautiful, and although it's really quiet, it had the beach, it had you know, this old architecture, and it felt very Basque. So I was astounded. I was literally so excited. So obviously I said yes. You know, I went back to Madrid, where my friend was staying. I hopped on a plane back to the United States and I started processing my paperwork for my visa. And this wasn't that complicated, actually, the paperwork for the visa. So basically I just, you know, I got everything prepared and I just had to give it over to, I had the Los Angeles Spanish embassy, the Spanish embassy in Los Angeles, or Spanish consulate. I went there and I handed my paperwork. But I will say that, you know, you do have to get a few things done beforehand. Like you have to get the background check and you need to make sure it's the correct one. Because I did get the wrong one at first, and that was just a delay in the time that I got to get all my paperwork ready. So I actually ended up being 21 days late for my assignment as well, which didn't look great at to the school at first, but we all just sort of became friends in the end. But yeah, so I got that done and I was placed in Portugalete, a really rainy town. Right when you arrive in the wintertime, the Basque Country is very rainy. So I would tell you this, like if you've been, most people get captivated by the Basque Country. And I know that when I first went there in 2016, that probably, you know, it seems like it's becoming a lot more popular now, but I went there in the summertime and I had, again, you know, returned every year since, but in the summertime. So when I actually went there for the first time in the winter, it was a harsh hit to the face, literally. I mean, I had a lot of wind and rain hitting me and hail, and it was icy cold, but it was great. So basically, when I arrived, you know, the first things you need to do are set up an appointment at the police department. This is going they just need to validate that you're going to be working there, and they need to, because technically the visa that you're going to get is only going to be allowing you to stay there for 90 days at first. So you have to go to the police department, show them your visa, and they'll give you the extension to stay, the amount of time that your contract is, or until your contract ends. So that's what I did. You know, again, that was really easy. And then, you know, I had to look for housing. So when I arrived, I stayed in a hostel for about 1 week before I found a spot, maybe even less than that. But I found a spot really easily, and it was just like with the most fabulous dueño, landlord, that I'm super good friends with to this day. And he had this room, this spare room, and it was originally his daughter's, but she was out of the house living with her mom. So I rented it from him for 280 euros per month, and you know, that included utilities. And as I told you earlier, 700 euros was more than enough to cover everything and that 280 euros rent. So I had that, and then I bought a Metro card, which was 50 euros per month, and it was, I mean, it had so many allotments for riding the Metro that it was basically unlimited for me, especially since I wasn't going into Bilbao every day. But yeah, it was really affordable and really great. But again, as I mentioned, I did work a second job, just because during that time I was really just in a mentally stressed way when it came to money. Money was a huge like it was something that always had caused me fear, the lack of it. So I didn't delay. The day that I went to work at the school, at the primary school, I went and looked for jobs immediately that day as well. I went to every English academy. I looked on Facebook, and I ended up writing this one girl who was in my area who was looking for a teacher, and she asked me to come in. And before you know it, I literally had a job at an academy, and I was working at the academy and I was working at the school, earning about, when it came down to it, I almost was earning like around 2,000 euros per month, so about 1,800. Plenty of money, honestly, plenty. Especially because, I mean, sometimes I think that like too much money can be bad because you end up spending a lot of it on food and wasteful things, and you're not as thrifty with it. But I mean, $1,800 is still, it's not a lot of money in general, but it's just, for where I was at, it was great. And the best part about it is that when you're an Auxiliar, you actually get a lot of holiday time. I mean, I'm talking about 3-week spring breaks, 2 weeks in the winter time, like random breaks for everything. So during your holiday times, you just go and travel. You just do everything that your European heart has ever desired to do. So that's where I was at. And yeah, I had a great experience doing that. But I will say also something I wanted to mention was I think there's a misconception that you're only supposed to work 4 days per week as an Auxiliar. Well, this was something that I went into the program thinking, I'm gonna have I'll work the first 4 days and then have a 3-day weekend. That was not the case. I was scheduled every single day. My 12 hours was literally scheduled throughout the week. I don't know, they made those hours stretch, trust me. I mean, I was working like 1.5 hours in the morning, and then I had like a 4-hour siesta in between the middle of the day, and then I would have to come back for 2 hours every day. It was like, and then I think on Friday I was like working 1 hour, but like at an extremely inconvenient time, so I couldn't leave and go on a 3-day holiday. But that's just the way it worked out for me. I did have something to say about that, and I was not met with very much sympathy because I had already been 21 days late. I'd already started in January, so, honestly, I didn't put up too much of a fight for it. I had some questions about it, and it just didn't happen for me. But it happens for a lot of people, and if it happens for you, all the more power to you. That being said, if you have any questions about the program, then just contact me. I'll put my contact information below. Feel free, because I know from personal experience that this is not easy to get through the actual application just because of the fact that a lot of it's in Spanish. And although you can literally translate your page to English for a lot of it, Profex, the government of Spain, did not make this process very user-friendly. So I'll make a video about it because I think everybody should have like some guidance on this. It just makes your life 10,000% easier. But that's all. Thanks so much for watching, and I wish everybody the best of luck and lots of success in your application process. Bye.